Now, key three is very important to Denver going forward. I talked about the 2019 draft and how I thought it was pretty solid, which is great for Elway, but that could change on one man's shoulders, and that was Drew Lock. Now, Drew Lock is probably one of the most interesting situations, quarterback scouting situations, that I have ever encountered. And the reason for this is he has changed more in 3 years than any player I have ever seen. When you look back at his junior season, and I was already scouting him because I expected him to declare, you saw Drew Lock as a quarterback who could run through his progressions quite well, made incredibly smart decisions in the pocket, was able to slide with basic footwork in the pocket to buy a little bit of time. And when he saw a play was dead, he killed the play, threw it over a wide receiver's head out of bounds, much like you see with Matt Ryan. He was a very smart quarterback who had a great deep ball. His mechanics were very different than the mechanics you see today. He had a timing touch with his base, which left him in a base that was positioned beautifully like Tom Brady. You saw the hips open. You saw the arm nice and loose. He had touch. He had accuracy. And he had a beautiful, beautiful deep ball. But he stayed for his senior season. And I heard that one of the reasons he stayed is because they hired a new coach who was going to help him modify his game and become more pro style. And that put up a red flag in my head, but I set that red flag aside. Also in his junior year, the big flaw you saw with Drew Lock is that he did not do anything off platform. He rarely was in off platform situations. When he was off platform, he was completely out of control and he couldn't put the ball where he wanted it to be with any regularity. So his senior season happens, and I'm not watching Missouri because I know I'm going to watch this full portfolio of film at the end of the season. And I hear somebody on a program in the SEC talking about how Drew Lock's amazing arm talent. And I pause and I go, no, in his junior year I compared him to Matt Hasselbeck, a one-win, half-win quarterback, and arm talent is not his calling card. So I kind of laughed about it and said, yeah, this guy doesn't know what he's looking at. And then I heard it again, and I heard it again, and I heard it again. And I thought, okay, I need to go back and watch what is happening with Drew Lock right now. So I went to YouTube to find the first full game tape I could find on him. I turned it on, and quickly I was appalled. His new pro-style coach had broken him. His stride step, instead of a timing tap, was now a long stride step. This put him off balance. It also made it impossible for him to open his hips. So he lost torque and his body did not flow through the throwing motion. He also engaged his shoulder more. This was the one good change. But then he threw with everything he had in his arms. So you saw laser beams being thrown around the field, but the base was off kilter. The hips couldn't move. The shoulder was a positive change. And then the arm was overtaxed. So he lost accuracy, he lost touch, and they asked him to be more creative. Try more back shoulder throws. So instead of hitting the deep ball and dropping it over the wide receiver's shoulder and perfectly in the bucket, now he was taking guys who were already past their cornerback and trying to throw a back shoulder throw, which did not work. They asked him, instead of making the smart decisions in the pocket and getting rid of the ball when the play was dead, they asked him to try and create. And they didn't teach him how to create at all. He had two go-to moves, and they were both terrible, and he failed with both of them. He would sprint out on a full sprint, completely uncontrolled, and throw the ball and had no accuracy whatsoever. And he would also bail into a back pedal and try and throw off his back foot, which very few quarterbacks in the league can do. So this is why you don't trust quarterback development to people who aren't high-ranking, elite quarterback guru professionals, because at this point in time, he had gone from Matt Hasselbeck, who could start and get you a half a win to a win, to Brock Osweiler, who doesn't belong in the NFL. At that time, I joked that he had become Elway's favorite quarterback in the draft and that he was destined to go to Denver if Elway had watched his senior season. Some people love this. There were high-end NFL caliber throws on his senior tape, but the substance wasn't there. It was erratic. And that made evaluating him very difficult because you didn't know who he was. Was he the junior year version? Was he the senior year version? Well, then I heard the name that makes you sit up in your chair, Jordan Palmer. And I went into his pro day saying, I'm going to evaluate him based on one thing and one thing only. What does his base look like? What does his base look like when he throws? Because he could have the timing step, he could have the long stride. Which is he going towards? Which is he gravitating towards? Because that will tell me which player he is gravitating towards becoming. He was a broken toy. He had the timing tap. He had the stride step. He had the easy open hips. He had the choked off hips. He had weak shoulder engage, which was negative. He had a positive positive emphasis put on his shoulder engagement. He had the light tax arm with nice loose fluid accuracy and touch. He had the overtaxed arm that was erratic. Which was he going to be? But also in the back of my mind, I had a hope. And that hope was, this is a quarterback who grades as a 0 in his adaptable mechanics. Yet, this is a quarterback who has a good hip turn, has a good wrist flick, and has an NFL caliber arm. If you put those three traits together and you go from no technique in adaptable mechanics, they can gain in adaptable mechanics. Now, what are adaptable mechanics? Adaptable mechanics are your ability to throw off platform. Drew Lock failed at this in college every single year, but he also looked like a kid trying to throw a ball for a first time. He didn't do anything in his mechanics that made any sense whatsoever. And there are a bunch of different ways that you can learn how to do this. And there are a bunch of different techniques that different quarterbacks use. I would subscribe to looking at Aaron Rodgers because he does all of them. I would not subscribe to looking at Patrick Mahomes because he does some stuff that no one else can do. So Drew Lock's pro day comes. And I don't put much weight in pro days because I don't care about a guy throwing in shorts. But I do tune into them from time to time to see if mechanical flaws are being fixed in the offseason, at least if they're making the attempt. First couple throws, and throughout the whole thing, you see Drew Lock is back in his timing tap step. And I go, perfect. He's Matt Hasselbeck. Moving on. And then Jordan Palmer blew everything I thought out of the water. And really, when you look at Tom House, the other quarterback guru everyone talks about, his big success story was Tom Brady. And the change he made in Tom Brady isn't as dramatic as people think it is. And I'll discuss that on another video. But with Drew Lock, this is the feather in Jordan Palmer's cap. This elevates him to a totally different level. This says, yeah, this guy is the guy right now. And what happened is, not only did he take both sides of this quarterback, break it apart, and put it back together perfectly, but Drew Lock evolved. When Drew Lock re-emerged in the 2019 season, you saw the timing tap from the junior year, you saw the easy open hips from the junior year, you saw the shoulder drive from the senior year, and you saw the easy open arm, or easy loose arm with accuracy and touch from his junior year. That alone is awe-inspiring. We have seen so many quarterbacks get their mechanics tinkered with, get broken, and never come back. And Jordan Palmer not only brought back junior year Drew Lock, but he added the shoulder drive so that some of the extra velocity that he gained in his senior year stayed with him. But why stop there? It's just awe-inspiring to me. I apologize. But as I said, there are different ways to handle adaptable mechanics. There are different ways to kill your momentum so that you can be balanced and throw in an off-platform situation. And we saw 3 really common examples of this week. When you saw the Davante Adams touchdown in the corner, Aaron Rodgers hop-stepped into his run to the right. He used his knees and his base to kill his momentum. He popped open his hips. He flicked his shoulder. He flicked his wrist and drove the ball into the corner of the end zone for a touchdown. You see with Josh Allen, when he's running to the right, he will do a skip steps to stall out his momentum as he goes into the air so he can be more composed and throw a ball downfield. Drew Lock does something different, and I almost want to imagine that Jordan Palmer took him off to the side and said, now throw like this. How did that feel? Throw like this. How did that feel? Throw like this. How did that feel? And whichever was most comfortable for him, he just went ahead with it. Because you can do it a number of different ways, but every quarterback is different and you have to find what is best for them. What Drew Lock uses, I call a post step. Now, this is the same thing that Haskins uses. This is the same thing that Roethlisberger uses. And when Drew Lock is running now to the right, he will slam his front foot down into the ground to kill his momentum and use that as an access to spin his body off of. You saw this in their game with the touchdown pass to Noah Fant. This was points on the board. If he couldn't do this, no points. That's why this is an evolution, because he gained the ability to use something in the game that will make the outcome better. This is not adjusting to the game. This is not finding the system that fits well with your talents. This is an actual talent. This is an actual skill that he has acquired that makes him better. That is what an evolution is on a quarterback. It's not just getting accustomed to the league. Now, when he in college would backpedal out of the pressure, now he does a post step with his opposite foot. He will step back, rock back onto his left foot, and he will spin his body off of that so that he can make that throw. Now, in college, every time he was out of sorts, every time he was pushed off platform, your success rate was extremely, extremely low. I said he was a 0. Now he's average. By NFL standards, he's average. And this is going to add a half a win to his capabilities as a quarterback. That is a true evolution. And I wrote an article about this last year when he started playing in the 2019 season. But at the time, I was still a little bit nervous. The adaptable mechanics that he was showing, while he was showing technique in this area that was going to give him the chance to vault his game forward, it still looked rocky. It still looked a little uncoordinated. It still looked uncomfortable. So that was one of the key things I was watching in this Denver-Tennessee game, and it's galvanized, folks. It's there. Now, old habits die hard. The Fant play absolutely was there. There was a throw late in the game where he threw a ball towards Judy where it almost went in the hands of Vaccaro. If you watch that play again, you'll see the shoulder did not come through on the throw. That took velocity off the throw, and that's why that ball was in harm's way as badly as it was. Earlier in the game, you also saw on the goal line where he floated a ball up over the head of the tight end on the backside of the play because Harold Landry was coming down the barrel. Now, if he had done his post step off his second step, he takes one step back with his right foot, takes one step back with his left foot to bail away from Landry and lets it go. At that point in time, he can float that ball up and land it in the tight end's hands. Again, that's points. Old habits die hard. He took 3 steps backwards, got himself on the right foot, the wrong foot, and tried to make that throw, and that's why it sailed. So the adaptable mechanics, the post step, they do look comfortable in him, but he's still young. He's still going to make the mistakes, and he's still going to fall back on old habits, old bad habits every once in a while. But right now, that post step change in his adaptable mechanics is galvanized. He's doing it almost every single time. And when you think about the situation a quarterback faces in a game, between 30 and 50% of the time, they are going to be on the move. They are going to be having to avoid pressure. They are going to have to make something out of a play. They have to bring about their own creativity. Drew Lock could not do this coming out of college. Jordan Palmer found the right technique for him to use to unlock this ability in him. And that is a huge development for Denver and vaults the grade on the 2019 draft up significantly. As I said, I had him as Matt Hasselbeck 2.0 coming out of college, And one game in, after seeing the post step, I made a correction article stating that, yes, this guy is on his way to evolving, and that is very, very rare.